Hey everybody, this is Anne, and I am here with a brand new segment for our Twitch stream, a Reaper ToolBox Live. So hopefully we'll start doing these on a regular basis. Today I'm going to just start it out by painting a dragon, one of the two dragons from Julie Guthrie's Dance of Death, which if you haven't seen it, is an awesome Bones 4 release with two dragons fighting. So I thought maybe it would be fun to kind of show you guys some scale work and maybe some eyes and teeth and claws and such on a black dragon. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Let's get to it. Hey, Bofi Fett. Also, I saw that some of you were saying that there are things that you would like us to cover that would help you. That's absolutely cool. If you want to, like throw those in every once in a while, I can certainly make a note of them for future streams if they keep having me on. I'm the local person, so they'll probably have me on quite a bit. But at any rate, let's get to Mr. Dragon here. So I decided to make the bottom dragon a black dragon. This was influenced by a pretty famous piece of fighting dragon art. If any of you have been around in the hobby for a while, or really are fans of the old Dragon magazine, you might remember an old Dennis Beauvais cover, I think it was Dragon 111, I looked it up just the other day, of black and white dragon fighting. And I really like the colors in the black dragon, so I thought that I would try, actually let me throw my palette over here so you guys can kind of see. I'm going to try to center it here, there we go. All right. So you can see how I'm loading up my brush. So I base coated my dragon in black. Actually, he's just in black primer, which is certainly a good enough base coat for black. And we're going to start on his face. I mixed up several kind of greens and browns here because the artwork is very much uses browns, greens, olives, and such, kind of parchment colors to highlight up the black. So I am going to start just kind of experimenting a little bit and seeing what colors I really like. As you can see, I only load up my brush about halfway. Let's see if I can get it in focus. Let's see here. There, kind of. It wants to focus on Mr. Dragon and not on Mr. Brush. There it is, almost. So I will only load up my brush about halfway, and I also am using a very thin brush, you're going to notice. I'm just going to start randomly, probably on his scales. And I don't want too much paint on my brush because I want to really control it. Because I don't want it to go everywhere, right? I want to kind of be able to just kind of tip some highlights onto these scales without it getting out of control. So this is right around, this is a Da Vinci, but it's the same size as a Reaper Aught 5 in the black handled brushes. And the reason I'm using a skinnier brush and a well palette is that skinnier brushes tend to work better with really thin paint. I'm not using very thick paint. I'm probably at about, I'm going to guess a little less than 1:1 here. So I've got a little bit more paint than water. That's kind of because I wanted you guys to be able to see results pretty fast on the dragon. So let me get in frame. This is our brand new, like first time ever streaming. So we're trying to make sure that we can keep things kind of in frame for you guys. There we go. So just starting with just kind of getting a little bit of a hint there of color on him. I figured I would introduce some greens after I kind of had the parchment color mapped out. We'll be using a technique called glazing to put in additional colors to make it a little less boring. Since highlighting the black dragon with all this, with just this bone color would get pretty boring.
Thank you for the sub, Param.
Ooh, we got a sub.
We did.
Ooh.
Param Underhill.
It's my first ever sub. Thanks, Param. Yeah, I haven't ever done streaming before, so this is my first time. I thought I would probably like it, though, because I babble a lot when I paint. So hopefully it stays entertaining. If you guys have questions, like specific questions about dragon painting or just about what I'm doing or techniques, feel free to fire them over there. Justin is kind of watchdogging the screen for me since I'm painting. I can't always watch it quite as well as I wish I could. So he'll hopefully catch some questions and toss them over here, and I can talk about it while I'm working Mr. Dragon. I'm going to start putting in some olivey green and see if I like that a little better.
Thank you for the sub, Mini Painting Studio.
Ooh, Mini Painting Studio.
I realize, Miss Anne, that I did not put the alert box on this particular.
Oh no!
scene,
Well, I
so
guess
you're not seeing them,
Mr.
because,
Justin, you get to be my alert box
yes,
today.
I get to for this particular screen. Thank you,
The
D. Klingman.
the resident voiceover voice is Justin, who is our videographer guy and general awesome person, who hooked me up with this gig. So let's see, what do I look in a miniature when picking one to paint? You know, I think that's really individual to everybody, Param. I will say that after years in the industry and going through several bouts of burnout, these days a miniature has to get me really excited for me to want to stick with it, especially if it's a big piece. And I tend to want to, these days I tend to really like large miniatures, like dragons, and I do a lot of busts now because there's some beautiful busts out there. But big monsters and things like that because I have more room to work on them. But I look for, first and foremost, I'm looking for a really clean sculpt. Like with Julie's dragon here, you can see, if it gets in focus, you can see all the scales are really well detailed. They're all really clean. We're not having to, oh, he's out of focus. Oh no, come on, camera. Dragon says, "Rawr, get in focus, camera." Woo. This way. You out. Other way. Other way. Ah! So, okay, we're going to have fun. All right, there we go. I'm just going to make the dragon fly a little bit, guys. So I'm trying to learn where the camera wants me to be. There we go. Yay! Hello. Yeah, burnout is a milestone point in the hobby, and I've gone through it several times because I freelanced for a while back in the day, and then I got the job with Reaper, and I was a staff painter for quite a while before the paint line really took off, and I started just mostly making the paint line. So what I learned is that I really got to be excited about the model. It's got to be a nice, clean sculpt, because if you look at a model and you see places on it, yeah, I'm kind of trying to anchor my hand mini painting studio between the palette and the other dragon. I kind of got a frame here, but you know how it goes, right? I probably should get like a sticky thing or something to put under my hand to really mark where it should be. Good suggestion. But yeah, essentially, if you look at a model and you realize like that the hand isn't sculpted very well, or maybe there's some problems with the face, or other stuff like that, what that's going to do is really, when you hit that, it's going to kind of kill your enthusiasm a bit. And if it's a big project like dragons, that's really going to be lethal, because it's a huge project. It's going to take you a while. And you're going to be painting it for a very long time, or at least what feels like one, even if you're trying to paint it fast. I just had a guy at Paint Club finish his first dragon, and I think it was one of the smaller ones, kind of Frost, like Frost. What's her name? What's the Frost dragon? Remind me, guys. Frost, or Death Sleet. That's it. Death Sleet. So it was Death Sleet sized, and he painted it red. And at the end, I think it took him 15 hours. And it looked pretty good, but he was just like, oh my God, I never want to see red again. And I never want to look at a dragon again. So yeah, when you pick these projects, kind of figure out, am I really this excited about it? Is it gonna pull me through? And while you're painting, you can kind of work on stuff like that to kind of find areas of the dragon that you are excited about. With me, usually one of the first things that I paint is going to be wings, because historically, I hate painting wings. It was all those years of having to paint Sophie. So wings can be a real death trap for me as far as painting enthusiasm. So I try to do them earlier in the model, because earlier in the model point, I'm still really enthusiastic. I haven't gotten really tired of the model, and it's still all fresh and awesome. And so if I can do things like that earlier in, then I can save the parts I really love for, toward the end when I'm getting tired. Let's see, I'm trying to think of other things I look for as far as loving the model, really good sculpt. I like dynamic models too. Because I paint at a high level, do I lose interest in speed techniques to get models done quickly? Interesting. I do use some speed techniques. I most notably will use spot wet blending techniques, where I normally layer like I'm doing here, so I'm working pretty much wet into dry. But I am very much known to do a spot wet blend if my layering isn't turning out very well. Like if I'm not getting a good blend, I'll just do, I'll just grab colors and mush them together, kind of like boop, boop. And I'll just kind of work with it like this, working wet into it. There we go. So that I can get my quick cheaty blend without having to work too hard. So wet blending, although it's not necessarily meant to be a speed painting technique, is a technique I use for faster painting. That said, I love painting at a high level. Like, it really is what gets me excited. I really love painting really well. Like that, it motivates me when I can do part of a model and I can go, dang, you know, that, I really love that. Look, that looks just like it did in my imagination. And so for me, high-level painting really is rewarding. And so that's why I tend to do it. If I didn't love it, I wouldn't do it. It gets me into trouble with army painting, though. I'll tell you that. It takes me forever if I look at painting anything for a game. I'm just like, I don't want to speed paint this. And I'm not too accustomed to speed painting. So, you know, I tend to get frustrated when it doesn't look good or I think it doesn't look good. I did learn a few tricks lately. I took a class, actually. I was sitting in on a class from one of our other ReaperCon instructors at KublaCon, where I was teaching recently, out in the Bay Area. And it was just a fast other source lighting class. And it actually taught me some tricks for doing fast highlighting that I enjoy. And there we go. We're getting his face kind of mucked out there. Now, I'm gonna cut from answering questions just for a second. Oh yeah, for the higher level that paint, the faster I am when I paint at tabletop level. Yeah, right. Mini painting studio. I totally agree. It does take me longer. When I try to slow down, I have to kind of remember how to paint fast. I want to point out something about Mr. Dragon. So you see, even though I've highlighted him and it's actually taking up a fair amount of each scale, he still looks pretty black on the head, right? He still looks dark. And that's key. I'm going to have to watch that as I keep painting him, because in order for him to really still look like a black dragon, I'm going to make sure that a very large percentage of every scale that's supposed to be black stays black. When you're painting black, it can be really tempting to over-highlight, and so you want to avoid doing that. If you do, that's when you start getting things like the black cloak that you're painting looks gray. You know, that annoying thing. And what I call that is surface control. And what you're doing is you're controlling the amount of the color you want it to be on each surface, whether each surface is a fold of a cape or a scale on a dragon. So for black, you want an awful lot, I would say 75%, maybe 65 to 75% of each fold or scale or whatever to stay black or near black. So here, I may actually end up putting a black wash over this to kind of tone down some of my highlights if I feel I'm losing it. Especially once I start putting colors in, because I want to put some greens and browns in here. So I may kind of get overboard and lose my black a bit and have to re-add it. So that's just a weird thing about painting. It's the opposite for a white dragon, by the way, where you could get too heavy with the shadows suddenly take up too much space, and your white dragon suddenly looks gray, or it looks light blue, it looks whatever color you put in to do the shadows, right? So kind of keep an eye on surface control when you're painting. Keep in mind the color that you want it to look should be half or more of the surface you're painting. That's just a general benchmark. There we are. All right, so let's see here. I'm going to start blocking in his teeth because I have brown. The problem here is that I want the teeth, of course, and the horns to also be bone colored, and that's kind of the color I'm also using to highlight the scales, so I have to make sure everything stays different. Contrast is a key part of miniature painting. You really do want each area to kind of stand out against the surrounding areas. So what I'm going to probably do is, like the shadow here underneath the tongue, I'm probably going to keep that really dark, almost black, once I start painting in the color for that tongue. And that's going to mean that these teeth, when I highlight them up to white, are going to pop, really stand out. And of course, down here on the lower jaw, I'm probably going to keep that a little bit darker near the teeth so that those teeth stand out. Any important feature of a miniature, kind of keep that in mind. Always keep contrast in mind, because they're so small. Even big guys like this are so small that we have to manually put contrast in to make really cool features pop out when people are looking at it. Using analogous color temperatures helps with subtle colors. Yeah. So using cool colors, using warm colors, can help with that. Contrast can also be your friend, though. I mean, using like a cooler blue-gray for your shadows on white and then popping it up with a little bit of a yellow in your white for the highlights can really make those highlights pop pretty high. So you can do either, right? That's the great thing about mini painting. I tend to go high contrast color schemes. Like lately, I really like doing kind of a green, orange, purple. And if you think about it, as I work on this guy, you're going to see me doing just that because I'm going to use some green in his scales, and then his eyes are going to be orange. I haven't figured out if he's going to have purple on him yet. He's going to have kind of pink for his ear membranes because a pinky color, a fleshy color, because that's what it is like in the art that I'm kind of working from. So I'm going to put some dark olive green in, and the olive green I'm working with is Swamp Green 9175 from Core. It's actually one of my favorite greens because it's really saturated for a dark green. It's a dark olive color. It's also really transparent, which is going to work for me on this because I'm trying, remember, to keep a lot of black here or near black. So I can put a little bit of a glaze of swamp green over these scales, and it's not going to lighten them appreciably, but it is going to give a little bit of a hint of green. So I do like to highlight my black dragons with olive greens. I think it plays to their swampy nature. It's a good color to use. So with swamp green, I've got swamp green, and then I've actually mixed a little bit of 9142 stained ivory into my swamp green to get a lighter olive as well, which I'm going to kind of pop up here and see if I like it a little better. So I want to make sure I'm getting all these different areas of the dragon. And when I fudge up, I'm not going to complain about it. I'm just going to fix it. Best way to deal with mistakes when you're mini painting is just to take a deep breath and realize, well, I did it once, I can fix it. It's not a big deal. I always screw up and have to paint over stuff that I do just because my brush control gets a little bit messy or what have you. The big thing is not to let it impinge on your enjoyment of the hobby. I mean, we all screw up. We all fix it. It's just take your time and not worry about it, really. Nobody's judging you for making a mistake. The important thing is that you enjoy your hobby. Sample color. Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah, those are always interesting just because, you know, sometimes it's actually a color I've done as a test, and other times it's just a color that we've had an oops on, that somebody mixed it wrong accidentally, which does happen. So yeah, sample colors are always fun because it's like, okay, did I mean to make this, or is this one of those ones that I don't have a formula for? Because when I do a really good oops, I do usually note the formula, just in case I want to actually produce it at some point. I think actually I need to rinse. There's another quick tip from yours truly is rinsing your brushes frequently is a good idea. I actually rinse a lot, almost every time I reload my brush, and I think it helps keep my brushes good. They last for quite a long time. Even when I was painting 40, 50 hours a week, it would take me probably 6 months to go through one of these Kolinsky Sable brushes, and it would keep a perfect point the whole time. So even now, even when they get to that point where they're really ripped up, I can still find a use for them. All right, so he's coming along. He's not looking too bad. I'm actually going to mix a glaze. And glaze is like a really thin wash. And the point is to tint the color underneath it rather than to have it settle into the cracks. So since you're tinting and you don't want it to settle, you just paint it over things in a really thin layer. So I want this to go a little green, olivey. So I'm going to paint it over these scales in a really thin layer. And I don't want it to pool, so if I see it pooling, I'm going to wick it off. The reason I don't want it to pool is that a glaze has been thinned so much that essentially you're breaking the paint. So if you let it pool, it's going to do that thing where it dries and rings on the upper surfaces. It's not going to stay. So there you go. So really, really thin layer, and it should dry almost instantaneously. So that made him a little bit greener as far as those highlights, just a little bit. Will these live ToolBox episodes get uploaded on YouTube? I hope so. Justin?
Absolutely they will.
Absolutely. I like hearing absolutely. Oh, I
we
think
try to put everything
we
try to put everything we do on YouTube. Actually,
try to put everything we do on YouTube.
No matter what it is. Yep.
Good. All right. That makes sense. I mean, the problem with Twitch, of course, is it doesn't save things for forever. So
no, it does not, unfortunately.
yeah, so, well, at least not until you get, well, even if you get to a really high level of subscribers, I think it still doesn't. So YouTube's a good backup for all the material. Because we know, we knew that since we were doing this in the middle of the day, that a lot of people would have trouble watching. So we wanted to make sure that you guys would be able to see it all. Especially like if you're watching it on your lunch right now, but you really can't stay on. We totally get that. So it's a good marriage of two mediums, I think. So I'm going to start kind of putting bone color up onto these teeth, and I'm like, oh, I lost, that's not a good blend. So I'm going to grab some of my Russet Brown is the dark brown I'm using, by the way. It's one of my favorite browns. Russet is kind of our answer for burnt umber. So it's a warm, dark brown that's quite yellowy. It also is quite similar in color to Vallejo Smoke, if you guys are used to that color. But it is a paint rather than, smoke is kind of a glaze or a wash. Aha, Reaper Miniatures has been awesome. Yeah. Woohoo. I'm trying to keep up with chat here. Slightly more denim twilight blue. Huh, okay, interesting. Yeah, Mini Painting Studio, do bring that to ReaperCon. I can always take a sample of it and try to recreate it. I'm always looking for new colors because every once in a while, Ed looks at me and goes, we need a new color for X. And I'm like, oh noes, I have no ideas. Because I've created over like 500 paint colors now, and you do actually start to run out of material that you think would be useful. So when I get a request for something, I'm fighting with these teeth now. When I get a request for a color that actually does sound useful, that I've somehow overlooked, I'm very excited about that.
D. Clearman, we're kind of discussing that actually. I mean, if Wednesday at 1:30 works out for the people that want to see it, then great. But if there's another time that we think we're going to get more people to watch, then we'll do that.
Yeah, we pretty much picked this time because I'm at work, and it was a good time for Justin as well. And we kind of wanted, it being a summer break and everything, we wanted to see if this was going to be kind of fun for maybe like kids, the college kids who are out of school, they can tune in. Wanted to see what kind of viewership we were going to get. We also were really, at least I was thinking also of our European customers once they get to hear about it, because this is actually a great time for Europe to tune in because it's like in the middle of the evening. It's like 8:30 over there. So it's a really good time if they're looking just for something to watch or listen to while they're sitting down to paint. So it would be cool, I think, to have streams for the different kind of time zones, to have streams that are good for US, streams that are good for Europe, and maybe even a stream that's good for Asia. Eventually, if we can figure out how to do it. I'm thinking about it. I want to kind of block in his eyes and tongue, I think, so I'm going to reach for my reds. I might have to actually mix because I'm woefully underprepared with dark reds here. And I realized I wanted to go dark with his mouth, so we'll see what I can do.
Don't worry, Cajun. It's going to be on YouTube, so you can catch up on anything you missed.
Yes, YouTube.
Yes.
There will be YouTubes.
Also, Collins had a decent question. He wanted to know if there was an email or somewhere that people could send paint questions, I think you said. About
usually
toolkits.
just questions at Reaper Mini, and if it's a paint question, it does get forwarded to me.
Okay.
Last I checked.
Or if you guys want to, and this isn't terrible either, reaperlive at reapermini.com.
Oh, that's true, because I can answer them on a toolkit, or I can, and that's actually great because what that would do is get me material to cover for toolkit, because being busy and running around and doing a whole bunch of stuff, I don't always have time to kind of brainstorm. So there we go. So I'm just mixing clear red with black at this point, guys, because why not? To block in a dark red for the tongue on this guy. I want to start pretty dark, because I want the teeth to stand out. And let's see, his tongue curls up over here.
That would be the Dance of Death, right?
Yes,
That's
Dance of Death from Julie Guthrie. This is the bottom dragon of the two dragons fighting. And I would like to paint this whole thing on stream eventually. When I grabbed it, that was kind of my thought, is I could show, because I can show you guys wings, and I can show you guys, like right now I can show you tongues. It'd be a lot of scale work, but let me make sure I'm staying in focus there. Okay, so I'm just painting his mouth. Let me see. Trying to figure out what the camera can see. There we go, there we go, there we go. Ah, there we are. All right, boom. There we go. Mouth. Mouth. I'm trying to figure, there we go. Yeah, it is a weird position. when I have to pull back to get a different. The problem is the model is so large. If it was a little model, I'd know exactly where I needed to be. But because it's a big model, it's like, well, to get this side of the model, I need to get my hands at a certain point. I'm guessing this is about 3/4 clear red with just 1/4 black or thereabouts. I don't really care much the actual color at this point. I just need a dark red to block in. And then I can add in more details as I go. Make things a little lighter. I'm actually going to go a little bit pink with my highlights because for mouths and tongues that actually works really well. There we go. It's a little bit better. There we are. It's having a hard time just because the mouth is recessed. So the camera's having a little bit of a hard time there, I think. But you guys get the idea. I can turn it more onto the side. There we go. There we are. That's better. That's very good. Sweet. And he looks pretty good. I'm getting that parchment color on the highlights, but I have lost a little bit of my black look. He's starting to look like a dark parchment dragon, which, you know, I guess you could have one, a dragon made of scrolls. But I'll have to remedy that by reintroducing some black to bring him back down. It'll be a little easier when we get to the big scales, because obviously there it's less tiny scales, so you can make your highlights quite small and keep a lot of the area dark. I'm going to grab some of the color that I was going to use for the inside of his ears, which is actually one that I think a lot of people underrate. Here we go. Dragon, dragon, dragon. Camera says rawr. There we go. It's 9232 Bright Skin Shadow. It's kind of this color. There we go. So it's a very pinky, fleshy tone. Which I think I really like for things like this, for the interior of monster ears or for mouths to mix with like a dark red. It's a very useful color for that. It's also a pretty good blush color or lip color for a fairer skin tone. It's a pretty color though. Let me see here what I can do. I'm going to mix up a puddle of it real quick. Grab some of my dark red and mix some in and see if I can get a good ear base coat color for Mr. Dragon. Oh yeah, that's a good color. So you can tell I make the paint line because I'm like absolutely fearless about mixing things together and I always know roughly what I'm going to get. So Mr. Dragon is very monochrome right now, so let's actually make him not so monochrome. And it does take a little more time to build up lighter colors over the black base coat, of course, but it's not too bad. I'm gonna keep some of my dark red here in the overhang. It also is hard to kind of paint on an angle, but I'm doing my best for you guys. Questions, questions, questions. Yeah, focus. We are messing with the focus as we go. Usually when I do my own videos for my Patreon, I have it on manual focus and have to constantly check myself to make sure I'm in focus. Just because autofocus is such a pain in the butt. Yay! Although Justin has a much nicer camera here than I have at home, that's for sure. More paint questions, welcome. I will look up. +1 for manual focus on the Mini, yes. All right, so I'm putting a little texture in there. Gonna come up with pure bright skin shadows, see how that looks. I'm just putting in like kind of little skin foldy marks here to suggest like the membranes in that ear. And I'm highlighting more toward the outside of the ear where the light would hit it. The light on this model actually is coming from above, so like it's shining down on the front of his muzzle, so I'm going to get more highlights on this side of things in a moment. It's always useful to remember that. With scales, it's pretty easy because scales stick out toward their edges, so edge highlighting scales is pretty good strategy no matter where your light is coming from, almost always. But I am going to have to make his nose a little brighter, especially if Mr. Fighting Dragon is looking down at him like this. This is his friend, or his enemy, Mr. Fighting Dragon. So it's like this, and so the light is coming from above onto the tip of his nose, kind of, as he looks up at his enemy. Actually, he's not looking bad. All right, cool. So let's put some more highlights on that tongue, and then I'm going to try to get those teeth a little higher, and I'll block in his eyeball. So I like putting like kind of little stipple texture on the tongue because tongues do tend to have a little bit of texture. So I'll use my really fine tip brush, and I'll kind of do a little dab, 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 dab to try to suggest a bit of that tongue texture. If it doesn't blend in real well, which is not right now because I put the pink directly over the top of the red, I can always do a glaze with a bit of my clear red and a little bit of my bright skin shadow, thin it way down. So it's colored water, and glaze that over the top and see how that works. All these glazing is really good for trying to blend things in. Yeah, see how that tones it down a little bit? I know we can't get really close on this, but hopefully you can see how that kind of dulled it down, made it blend in just with one quick coat. I want to grab my whites because I am going to block in the eyeball. I think he's actually turning out pretty well so far, though. I do need to get those teeth to work a little better. Sometimes teeth and claws can be sculpted kind of clunky, or if you had to trim them down with a knife, as I did with these, because mold lines, you could inadvertently kind of create a harder surface for you to paint nicely. So what I usually like to do with teeth and claws is kind of make striations, like they've got kind of lines etched into them to give them a little bit of variety rather than just painting them as I paint them more like horns and less like claws and teeth, I guess. These are small enough. We'll see if I can actually pull that off. But I do want to bring them up a bit more now. And I need to paint the eyeball. I want the eyeball to be really bright orangey red or orange. So I'm going to undercoat it with a white or an off-white. In this case, I'm just undercoating it with skeleton bone because it's what I've got on my plate. So what I'll do is fill in the entire orbital of the eye with this off-white or white color. And what this does is kind of like using the white paper trick, and it's actually a trick that colored pencil people use a lot, is if they're working on a colored paper and they need a color to be really bright, they'll actually put down a layer of white colored pencil first, and then the color they put over the top of it will look a little brighter. So since I want his eyes to be pretty darn glowy, that works for me. So he's not going to have white eyeballs, but we'll get to coloring them in a little bit. I'm jumping around a lot, so if there's a particular topic you want me to concentrate more on, just let me know. I'm going to try to get these teeth kind of going in the direction I want them, though. It's my next task. And I'm thinning down my paint a lot, and I'm going to use just a tiny bit on my brush and see if I can kind of suggest some toothy texture. Just checking. Stippling is your favorite technique? Mine too. Which DaVinci series am I using? I actually love the Series 10. Mini Painting Studio, I do use the 11, the full-bellied round as well. Oh, hey, Justin, my chat screen went inactive.
Oh no, not the TV. The TV's coming.
All right, well, I'll work on the questions that you guys asked me before my chat screen disappeared. But my favorite brush for competition painting is actually the DaVinci Maestro Series 10 size 1. It is a very long and narrow brush. As you can see, I do a lot of work with long and narrow brushes because I use my paint very thinned, and they are really excellent for keeping control of paint that is very thin. The full-bellied are better for thicker paint techniques. Although the full-bellied 0 is a lot like the Series 11 0 is a lot like the Series 10 round. So they get very close there. But in general, people, so you know, a wider brush, like say the DaVinci Maestro Series 11, which is the full-bellied round, is going to work better with thicker paint. That's what they're made to do. They're made to put down a lot of paint quickly. And on a miniature, you usually don't want that. So like if you're using really thin paint and you're trying to use a Series 11, it's not the optimal tool for the task. You can make it work, but it's not really what it's designed for. So it's a little easier on you if you're using really thin paint to go to a thinner brush like the Series 10 or anything with a more narrow shape. Because that brush is meant for detail work and lining usually. And so it's meant to lay down precision color in a more thinned medium, and that works with you if that's what you're attempting. So be aware that different brushes have different, were made for different things, and although you may certainly choose to use them for something other than their intended purpose, we do that all the time, if you're having trouble, kind of look at what you're using and ask yourself if that could be part of it. All right, so that's a little bit better. His teeth are a little rocky, but I am at least getting some variation of color, so I'm okay with that for now. I'm going to kind of highlight the tips a little bit more since he's been chewing on things, and that makes his teeth totally pearly white, like milk bones for dogs. Dragon-sized milk bones would be kind of scary. Yay. Just trying to make my little teeth work. There we go. My paint actually got a little bit too far up my brush on this one. I had my pretty heavy load on here, so I will clean it off in a moment. When you let your paint kind of go all the way up to your ferrule, which is this metal part, you risk kind of wrecking your brush and having to use a serious brush cleaner on it because it'll dry up in there and give you poof effect. So if you have a brush with poof effect, you may have been dipping your paint too deeply into your, or brush too deeply into your paint. And brush cleaner I like to deal with that is actually the Windsor & Newton Brush Cleaner and Restorer. Be careful when you use it because it will actually take the paint off of your brush handle if you get it on there. But it works really well if you work it up to the base of the brush and the ferrule. It works really well to get that paint out of there if you've accidentally gotten paint up in the ferrule. And you can get it, I think, on Amazon or any art store will have Windsor & Newton Brush Cleaner and Restorer. It's also, its secondary purpose is, it's good for getting paint out of clothes. Do test it to make sure it's not going to impact your dye job on your clothes. But I've had a lot of luck using it to break up paint in jeans or t-shirts. Let's see here. Yeah, the Series 30 is the shorter one, right? And they've got a couple, that's the Restoro or something, isn't it? I like that, but not for details. It's definitely one that I'll use if I'm trying to use thicker paint and I'm blocking in highlights and shadows on a larger model. I kind of had an epiphany about this when Sergio was here for his class. There we go. Dragon is back in. There we go. Now yeah, it's starting to look like a dragon or something. Wow. When Sergio was here for his class, because he uses a very large brush that's thicker bodied. I'm trying to get Mr. Dragon in perfect. Eventually I will learn how to drive the dragon so that you guys can actually see it. There we go. I wonder what happens if the dragon crashes into the median. Probably causes it like a 12-car pileup. But anyway. But yeah, I have this, because Sergio uses very large brushes and he uses much thicker paint, and I never thought that was workable for me, but then I realized that it worked because when you're using a big fat brush like a Series 11, I've actually got my brush that I used for Sergio's class, although I don't have my class mini here. But let me point it here. I never lick my brushes, by the way. I don't need any more chemicals in my body, so I tend to just lick my hand or point it with water. So this big fat thing that I've got in my hand is a Da Vinci Maestro Series 11, size 2.
Move further away, they can see.
Further away? There we go. Perfect. It's down there. Big fat brush. So this is, you see how wide it is, right? So this is made for holding a lot of paint and putting it down. The problem with using thin paint with this is that it's really hard to control. It all wants to come off because that's what this is built for. But if you use thick paint with this, like Sergio does, then it's brilliant because it actually is a big enough brush to keep the thick paint from drying in it, which is key. And you can still have a great tip on there. As you can see, it still has a really good tip. So you can still hit details. I was amazed to find that I could do eyeballs on a 72 millimeter with this. I never thought that would be possible. But after I realized it was all paint physics, and it's just that the bigger, fatter brush keeps the thicker paint wet better so that it does come off the brush well. That was kind of my little epiphany about how brush size and shape is tuned to the type of wet palette you use and the thickness or thinness of the paint you use. So if you are using a wet palette and you are having issues with your wet palette, see if you can switch to a bigger, fatter brush and if it doesn't work better. If you are using a well palette like I do, see if you can switch to a thinner brush and thin your paint more and see if it fixes your issues. Troubleshooting paint with Anne. All right, do we have any more questions? How about cat people? Cat people are awesome. I always played a cat person in Final Fantasy when they were available. The online version, sorry. Let's see here. Yeah. Oh, Series 11 for base coating with super wet paint, especially large models. Yep, agreed. Oh, I missed part of these teeth. I need to get back on there. That always happens, by the way. See, even to me, even to people like me, you get that whole, oh, I missed a part. Gosh darn it. So we're going to adjust our dragon smile here and hit the part that we missed, which is the back of the teeth because I was looking at it from the front. And I actually don't want them that bright because my light source is from the front. So I want to get a more brown, more brownish. I don't want to lose my highlight entirely, but I definitely want it more shadowed back there. And if that means I have to re-highlight the front, so be it. There we go. Yeah, he's doing okay. I need to stipple his tongue, though. The tip of his tongue is wagging out there, and it doesn't have stippling on it, and this is a problem. So, very little paint on my brush. I'm guessing I'm using about a 2-to-1 paint to water for this because I want to leave artifacts, and by artifacts I mean brush strokes. But that actually might not be thin enough, and this is an example of, thin brushes, there are limitations. If the paint is too thick, it will not want to come off of a thin brush. So if you are having trouble with your thin brush, having the paint come off of it evenly, thin your paint a little bit. Let's see if that does. Yeah, there we go. See, now I can do tiny little stipples to suggest tongue texture, no problem. There we go. All right, so I can't get real close, but I've got tiny little stipples on his tongue now. It makes me happy. And hopefully it makes him happy, because dragons, this dragon and the other dragon, they're kind of grumpy. So, and I'm just going to stipple a little bit in the middle of his tongue. I'll probably adjust it later, but I want to get some texture in there. I'll probably put a slightly brighter line highlight next to the crease in the tongue to bring out that detail. I may need to darken that middle of that crease since I'm kind of working at a weird angle. But let's see, any other questions? Talking to you guys in Germany about getting brushes from different sources than Amazon. Yeah, Cajun Mage, I don't think anybody is teaching this right now except me. Because I love to break down why things work. Like, that's one of my serious joys about teaching, is I like to look at things and try to figure out, okay, how can I teach this to help people like understand it, right? Instead of just saying, well, this works, why does it work? That's what I want to know. That background is probably why creating the paint line came as such a enjoyable thing to me, because I do like the science behind painting. And so, yeah.
Thank you, Charleston.
Do we have a sub?
Yes, we did.
Woo! Thank you. Twitch Prime sub. Awesome. That's so nice that Twitch Prime does that. That gives you a kind of a free sub. Amazon Prime, rather. If you guys didn't know about that. You probably all do, though, because you seem like you're pretty Twitch kosher.
That Param, actually. This is the first time this channel has ever had this. We had 2 gifted subs.
Yay, gifted subs. And that's a nice person is what that is. Thanks,
really
Param.
cool. Thank you, Param.
Gifted subs are the best.
And I think this is a good time, because I mentioned this earlier. Some people have already used it. We have a brand new emote as of this stream. This is the first stream
We
to
have
see
a
it.
new emote? Oh, and I lost my chat screen
Yeah,
again.
hold on a second.
Hee The TV is like, you haven't done anything to me in a while, and so I'm going to get all sulky.
There you go.
Yay, I can see you again.
So our new emote for this particular stream, and I think I'm going to get another one in by tomorrow's Reaper live stream. But the one tonight that you have is the Mama-san.
We have the Mama-san emote.
We do, but it's a little more macabre than just Mama-san.
Oh no, is it zombie Mama-san?
It is zombie Mama-san.
She's not dead yet. This is too soon.
Hey,
This is like
she's older than the company.
Yeah, but she's a Siamese. She's gonna last forever. Aww,
She
undead
will.
Mama-san. Oh yeah, Candelo. If you have Amazon Prime, then you should get the option to essentially do a free sub. You could choose one person a month. The downside to it is that you have to manually renew it. It doesn't auto renew like a regular one does. So I use a lot. I'm into Overwatch, so I use my Twitch Prime sub for a lot of like Overwatch streamers.
And actually, if you look at the Moobot link just up in the chat there, conveniently has a link to link your Amazon with your Twitch.
Oh, there you
assuming
go.
You have Amazon Prime. It's nice and neat.
Super awesome. I just added a little bit of pink kind of for his inner eye membrane there. I'll decide if I like it later. I'm going to block in the rest of the eye though, because I think I missed some of the some space on that eyeball. It is actually a very, very large eyeball, which is good because then we can do all sorts of cool details on the eyeball. There we go. Blocking in our, there, big, huge eyeball. Yay. I think I'm going to work up the, I think I'm going to get the horns. I think the horns will be next. Oh, what were the series for the Da Vinci's? My favorite is the Series 10 size 1. It's a very long and narrow brush. The size 0 in that range is good too. Series 11 size 0 is also excellent. And if you want a big fat brush for using thicker paint, base coating, or just, fast speed painting, Da Vinci Series 11 size 1 or 2.
Thank
For
you,
bigger
Scavari,
models.
for the sub.
Yay, more subs, Scavari. Thank you. How many people do we have in the stream right now, Justin?
37.
Awesome.
37.
That's fantastic. For a first stream, we didn't get to advertise very much just because we weren't quite sure if all the schedules were going to work out. But hopefully from now on, guys, we'll give you guys some more notice.
Yeah, if you guys like this, then we'll do a consistent week-to-week thing.
Yeah, I would love to do a weekly stream with you guys.
We could all improve together. Except
Yeah.
for me, I don't think there's any help.
Justin will improve in reminding Ann to look at the chat screen. That's what he will improve in.
Oh, Scavari is Brian from your Patreon.
Oh, awesome. Hi, Brian. Yes, I told my patrons that I was streaming today, and it's my first time, and I was all excited. So thank you, patrons, for tuning in. I know I saw, I think one of them was David Clearman as well on there earlier. So thanks. I guess that since I've mentioned my Patreon, I should tell you guys where to find it. I was going to wait till the end, but since it came up, I am painting big, all one word, on Patreon. So patreon.com/paintingbig.
I'll have a link for you real quick, Ann.
Okay.
Give me half a second.
Great. That's really nice of you. Yeah, I do love my Patreon. I waited a long time before starting it because I just wasn't sure. But I got to say, if you're an artist and you have fans and you want to connect to a fan base, it's fantastic. I adore it. I love doing content for it every month. Until this and until the Reaper Live thing, I didn't really get a chance to do videos for Reaper. So it was really cool to me to be able to have that interaction and to be able to do video kind of on my own time. I'm certainly not a pro at it yet. Justin here makes me look far better than I am. But I do enjoy it. So
I was actually just thinking this picture you got on your Patreon here. It looks really good. Who took this?
Justin took my picture for my Patreon and also helped me film my intro video for it. So, and just so you guys know, I'll just be during Twitch streams, I'm going to be randomly babbling about everything, right? Because that's what you do with Twitch streams. What the Patreon is more structured learning. So essentially, I'll choose a topic, or my $15 tier will choose a topic, and I will do like a short video on it for my $2 tier, and I'll do a different topic for my $10 tier with a longer video usually, maybe, and often bonus videos too if I get to them. Stuff like that. I sometimes will do a PDF instead for $2, or I'll do, and then my color workshop is just talking about paint really. For the color workshop $5 tier might as well be an ad for Reaper Master Series because it's essentially me talking about how I use our paint. So just because, again, I didn't really have a soapbox for this because at Reaper, I'm very busy generally. I'm down there making paint and developing colors and trying to keep up with deadlines and all the rest of it. So I don't have time to really talk to you guys about the paint and the best way to work with it and just generally how it works. So it was awesome for me to get the Patreon going and have a chance to do that. So that is a big thing for me. I like to finally have the opportunity to do that because I don't have the time to do it on the clock.
I don't think we know what the Reapercon paints are yet, Scavari.
What the what?
Reapercon paints? Do we know? Are those announced yet?
No, they're not. I've been thinking about those. I have several prototype paints that I'm kind of excited about, and they've kind of been fighting for my love as far as what the ReaperCon colors are going to be. So I'm just, I don't know. I mean, the colors that I like the most right now are kind of a purple, salmon, yellow triad that I kind of named after flowers. So there's orchid and lotus and sunflower. And I don't know if you guys saw my piece for Crystal Brush this year, but I used those colors on the purple cloth. I unfortunately was a bad person and did not give Justin pictures of that to show in advance, but I didn't know I was going to bring it up. So that's in the running. I also have a different set of clear brights that are single pigment that essentially based off of the clear brights. A couple of them are based off clear brights that we used to have ages ago and that we canceled because back in the day people didn't understand that clear brights were awesome. So I've got a clear orange and a clear phthalo green that are beautiful colors. But I didn't know if that was the best thing to choose for ReaperCon because, maybe people don't know how to use them. So maybe maybe I should do colors that are more accessible. I've got a couple other colors too that I've just kind of been playing around with. There's a really cool green. More clear brights. Yeah, well, we know what you guys want. Muppet Fur Orange. Isn't that like burnt orange? I guess it would be a slightly more saturated burnt orange. Oh no, dragon. That way. Oh, I'm driving the dragon. Driving the dragon.
Keep going.
Driving. The problem when you say left is that it's right. Down.
Down a little more.
Down. Ha-ha! Okay, so what I'm doing here on the horns, you can see the striation thing. I wanted to do this on the teeth, but they're just too little. But here on the horn, I can actually do the whole kind of have it kind of dirty near the base of the horn where, gunk would build up. And this dragon doesn't really take good care of his horns, obviously. So, they're more polished toward the outer edge where they're going to actually be like scraped by other dragons' claws and the elements and such. So I tend to like that. Traditionally, horns are inverted from this. Like if you look at water buffalo horns and stuff like that, they've got a dark tip and they're lighter toward the root. So you can do either with dragon horns. They both look natural. They both look good. Oh, I need to get a little brighter highlight on there, I think. So I'm going to mix more into my skeleton bone here. Skeleton bone is a bones color. It is a 9435. It's an off-white. It has a slight greenish tinge, but because I'm doing so many greens on this model, it actually fits, so I was fine with it. In reality, it doesn't matter much what off-white you choose to do this sort of thing with. It's as long as there are no other like more pure whites on the model, it will just read as light color. You won't really see it.
Also, pair them to answer your question from earlier. I believe we're not going to any other conventions this year other than ReaperCon. I believe.
Yeah,
that may be subject to change, but to my knowledge, I think that's all we're doing.
Yeah,
this year.
Adepticon was kind of our last one for the year because ReaperCon is taking up more and more of our time. And we love it, and it lets us directly engage with our audience. So we've also got an awful lot on our plate. I mean, Bones 4 was huge. So we're also just trying to make everything work here at Reaper. So yeah, as Justin says, we may announce more later once we have some things more solid and figured out.
Yeah, I'm not going to take it off the table, but it's definitely unlikely that we're at any other conventions this year.
Yeah, this year.
Other than ReaperCon.
Yeah, other than ReaperCon, right.
Which is ours, so it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there are conventions that I used to love to go to that I wish we'd go back to, but I think that part of the problem, too, is that Reaper is still a very small company. I mean, it's easy to remember, or easy to forget that because we are multinational and awesome, but our on-site staff are maybe 40 people, 30 people. Yeah, so if you think about all the stuff we have to manage, and it's 30 people doing everything, you can see why we don't really have a convention staff right now. And when we do go to conventions, it takes many needed support staff off of our floor. So it makes it a little hard for us.
Bones 5. What's Bones 5, Brody?
Bones 5?
Yeah, no, that's That's pretty
Does somebody have like a leak from Ed? Did Ed like
Whoa,
leak this?
leak?
Because
What?
I don't know anything.
Yeah, I don't know anything either.
Like if Bones 5 came, I'd have to make up 12 new paints, so I sure hope that I would know about it.
Is that better, Cajun? Well, I don't want to blow you guys out too much. I kind of want her to be the louder of the two of us.
Hello, Color Buddy! Pezler Polychromatic. That is a heck of a name. Iron and Steel NMM paint triad. So really dark. Iron and Steel. You know, a lot of people have been talking about the new Bones colors for NMM Steel. Specifically Carbon Gray. The triad that has Carbon Gray, Foggy Gray, and Moonstone Blue in it. You could start with that. You could even throw, assuming you like a kind of a blue tone to your dark steel, you could even grab Glacial Mist from the other Bones triad and use that as your dark. Carbon Gray is a very dark charcoal gray. I honestly am happy that we finally made one. Oops, my paint got a little dry. Time to rinse. Because I feel like, here, I'm going to put Mr. Dragon. Driving the Dragon. There we go. Driving the Dragon. Is that good, Justin? I feel like we're just a little bit out of focus with Driving the Dragon.
Come down a hair.
Down a hair toward.
Yep, back up.
Boop, boop. Aha!
There you go.
there is definitely a sweet spot with Mr. Dragon. But yeah, steel, I mean, it depends on how dark you like your iron and steel, right? But the carbon gray is a charcoal gray. It's a beautiful dark gray. You could add a tiny bit of glacial blue to it from the Misty Colors triad, just to give it a little bit of a bluish hint. Yes, I've got one new Greek Nikos. Yes. That was a pretty grotesque one. In fact, it got me thinking about gross paints because, you know, I've been thinking about doing Mummy Brown for a while. Do you guys know the Mummy Brown story? The story about the legendary Mummy Brown? That you're skipping Bones 5 and going straight to Bones 6. Yeah, that's totally an Ed with with antler ears. That is totally it. So yeah. Yeah, try them from the Kickstarter. Absolutely. The mist colors I really like too for doing different kind of magical steel. Like you could use the purple mist, the sorceress mist, mixed with a little more gray as the basis for like a magical sword if you wanted it to have kind of a purple hint. And I think that the jungle mist plus maybe a little bit of like a pale yellow would make a great undead like vampire sword if it's like greeny, yellowy, glowy. Things like that. I'm falling behind. There's so many comments. What is my favorite Bones 4 model? I'm painting it. No, actually, my favorite Bones 4 model, it's either the Dance of Death or it's Baba Yaga's hut. I'm a huge mythology and folklore fan, so Baba Yaga's hut is so cool. All right, so horn on the dragon. I'm going to do the other horns because I got the colors all nice and the right consistency. What time is it, Justin? Wow, time flies when I'm hanging out with you guys. I love this.
It is 2:30.
The closer it gets to the end of the day, the happier I am. Because Reaper is awesome, don't get me wrong, but it's still work. Let's see here. I don't want to miss any questions. Yeah, I need it. You're right, Brody. I do need it. Next time we'll get maybe I'll get a marker, or we can use a little tape square where I need to keep my my dragon. That's something we should definitely do. Since I am obviously not very good at driving the dragon, I failed my dragon driving test. Dragons, as it turns out, are harder to drive than cars. I guess Daenerys could tell us about that. I'm trying to block these in, but I lost a lot of my dark down at the roots, so I'm going to grab some more brown. Russet Brown, 91.99. Such a nice, pretty dark brown. And it mixes so well. The other reason I love russet, and you may have noticed this from what I'm doing, is that it mixes really well with that stained ivory color and generally in the Bones and Ivories triad. It just works really well with them. The other thing it mixes well with, if you're using Russet Brown for leather, if you need a kind of a washed out highlight, like a weathered look, mix it with Driftwood Brown, 9162. Makes a great kind of not orange that still keeps it neutral, but still a good highlight, and it kind of looks like it's weathered. Let's see here. Looking for questions, looking for questions. All right.
Pezzler Polychromatic wants to know if you want to do any color shifting paints.
I looked at them, and I looked at them quite a while ago. The problem I had was that the producer that I found here in the US couldn't do a flake fine enough to make me happy. I kind of have, and this isn't necessarily Reaper's policy, but it's something that I kind of keep in mind myself. If there's something out on the market that other companies are doing, then unless I can do a better version of it, like unless Reaper can excel and make it better in some way, or make a very high quality version of it, then I kind of wonder why would I do it. So I know there are several color shift paints out there on the market now, as the flake becomes more available to us in the hobby industry, because it started in the automotive market, and for a long time the only color shift flakes you could get would only be good for solvent paints. So now they're actually making them for water-based paints, and that's why you're seeing this all of a sudden. But I think the best flakes for it are probably European sourced, and my particular flake source was unable to really find much for me over there, so they probably don't have the right sourcing, and I'm not sure where to look. The company I tested did pretty cool color shifts, but the flake was really, I don't know, it was too coarse. I would have wanted a finer flake, but I'm not sure a finer flake exists either, right? Because it's for automotive industry. On a car, that flake would be plenty fine. So I'm not sure what the newest iterations of color shift coming out, if they're a really fine flake or if they're still kind of a little sparkly. You guys might know better. But if the industry actually starts making like a really fine color shift that would look really good on small miniatures, I might consider it. The other problem with them is just what are you going to put them on? I mean, you could use it on a dragon, but the real sweet spot for it would seem to be science fiction miniatures. We don't really make a lot of that. Might look really good on Bethalians, like our alien dudes from Chronoscope who have the chitin. I bet it would be really cool on those. And it looks great on vehicles too. So yeah, that's kind of where I am on color shift. I'm not real close-minded about it, but I'm not researching it right now. I'm actually researching other stuff instead, just because I'm like, well, maybe we could do a better version of something here or here. We've got a couple of things in the works that I'm kind of playing with right now. There's always stuff I'm playing with. Painting the hut right now. Not to remove the feet, yeah. Like a hill for the feet to hide in. That works. I like the chicken legs. I was actually going to do a painting session on here about painting yellow for those chicken legs. Everybody else isn't flaky enough for Anne. Gotcha. Yeah. You need to be pretty darn flaky for me. You guys are awesome. See, this is why I wanted to do Twitch. I wanted to do Twitch because I actually wanted to interact with you guys more. I love it. It's super fun. What about texture-based materials? Like crackle paint, you mean, Mike Holmes? Yeah, they're nice for bug. The color shift are really nice for bug minis. You're right. Oh.
Mike Collins.
Oh.
That's Collins.
That's Collins. Well, I'm pronouncing it phonetically because it's on the thing.
No, it's fine.
You're just letting me know that Collins is griefing me. All right, that's fine. I like that too. Okay, but let's not get distracted from our actual questions, from our actual people. But yeah, agreed. Color shift are really good on bug minis, Games Workshop Tyranids, whatever else you're going to do with that sort of thing. Texture paint, I'd have to find a source for it. I don't really have one. It's because it's purely a hobby material, it would need to be sourced through a hobby supplier. Like, it's nothing that we would find in the normal quote-unquote paint industry, right? Or in the automotive paint industry, or in the, it's very, very much a hobby application. So I would have to find a new distributor to source that kind of thing in order for us to look into it. That's fairly low priority right now. It would be kind of cool if we could develop something new in that market, because I think that a lot of the products out there, Games Workshop does a decent one, but I think we could improve on it. That is something we could improve on. And I always like getting those ideas, things that we could maybe do better. Boop. Trying to fill in. There was a little pit in the plastic there, and pretty much I just kind of glued it in with some paint. That's totally a viable method for dealing with stuff like that. It's even better if you can put a little primer in it. Sometimes primer reacts with bones, but the key here is if I've already put down a layer of paint, I could put a nice thick dab of primer to fill in that pit, and because the paint is between it and the PVC, you wouldn't get a reaction, but you'd still get the benefit of the primer being thicker and being able to fill in that little imperfection. Or you could just be crazy and green stuff after your paint, which is a thing. Which miniature is this? This is the bottom dragon of the Dance of Death diorama that Julie Guthrie did for Bones 4. So it's the two dragons fighting. I've decided to do the bottom one as kind of a black dragon. So right now he's more of a swampy green kind of parchment dragon. I'm going to have to darken him down a bit as we go. But this is that dragon. And I think I've got less than half an hour left. I kind of capped myself at an hour and a half because that's a really good productive period for me. So I've got a bit more time to hang out with you guys. And I think I'm going to start on doing the eyeball. I think that maybe it's time to talk about eyeballs. Usually I like to have photo. Oh, good. I was going to ask. Michael Collins is saving us. So we're going to see. Hey, can you move to the face cam for me, Justin? There we go. All right, so this is the Dance of Death. For those who have not seen it, it is super awesome, fantastic. I'm going to drop Mr. Dragon for a second so I can circle it around. So it's two dragons fighting. The dragons are not tremendously huge, you will see, and that is cool because it means that you don't have to paint something that's Maldekar size times 2. Can you imagine? You'd have to put it on your floor and it would come up almost to your chest. Not that that wouldn't be cool, but can you imagine? So this is the dragon on the bottom. Will be a black dragon. And then top dragon is currently undecided. I am actually considering asking Reaper to post a poll on our Facebook group about what color I should paint Mr. Top Dragon. I don't know. Huh? We could also just do it in here. I was trying to cross-platform, but if you think it'd be cooler to do it in the chat for Twitch, that would be an incentive. But yeah, so this is a very, very cool piece. Julie Guthrie is definitely tops. Okay, we can go back to Dragon Cam. Dragon Cam, yay! Wow, that was instantaneous. It was so perfect. There we are. We are in resolution. So he's looking pretty cool. He definitely looks like more a swampy dark green dragon right now. So we will work on that. Now, one thing to keep in mind also, pink. I knew someone would say pink. In fact, I'm willing to bet that somebody would grief and say drow nipple pink if only you guys knew that there was a whole gallon of it downstairs. Because I'm making it for ReaperCon again. So those for those who know the secret story of drow nipple pink, the legend. Red versus black. White metallic dragon. So NMM silver, George Hintz, or Heinz. I'm not sure how to say your last name. Sorry if I mangle anybody's name or moniker or pseudonym. I apologize. I'm terrible at it. Just ask anybody who's listened to my award ceremony at ReaperCon. Yeah, I love Julie's sculpts too. She just does the most awesome dragons ever, and they're just a pleasure to paint because the details are so nicely picked out, right? I mean, it's effortless. It paints itself almost. It's just great. So I want orange eyes, but I kind of want a little bit of a red base to them. So I think I'm going to use some clear red, thin it down a bit, and maybe put a glaze of clear red in there just to get some color. I want to talk about one thing just because I mentioned this is more of an olive dragon at the moment than a black dragon. You will always get a shift in color based on what your colors are next to. So part of why his head looks very like an olive dragon instead of a black dragon right now is that it is next to the solid black of his neck and the rest of his body. If the entire body was painted this color right now, he would look a lot more like a black dragon because then you wouldn't have that comparison between the solid black parts and the highlighted parts. So what I'm most likely to do, and this is just something that I tend to do because I know that this is an issue, right, is I will wait until I block in more of this front part of the dragon, and then I'll kind of look at it objectively and see how much darker I have to take it. Because if I were to react now and try to darken down this head, I might go too far because I'm sitting here with solid black next to it, and I'm like, oh, I have to get close to that. In reality, I don't need to get close to that. I just need to get like a little darker for it to really look black. So I often will do things to a certain standard, and then I will wait until the very end to adjust colors for a final adjustment, because everything is relative to the color next to it.
Out of curiosity, Anne, actually,
Yeah.
the Drow Nipple Pink that's downstairs,
Yeah.
is that available for purchase or anything, or what is it exactly?
Oh, so the legend. So, okay, so Ed thinks he's really funny, and if you guys have watched him on Reaper Live, you know that he thinks he's really funny. And so I have my whiteboard downstairs in the paint department, and it's at the top, it says Urgent Colors. So one day, a few years back, he came in and decided to be a smart aleck and wrote Drow Nipple Pink at the top of my Urgent Colors board. So I said, okay, I'll make it. And I did. I made it for ReaperCon that year, and it had its own special badge ribbon that went with it. And to get it, you had to know that you had to come up and ask me about drow nipples, and that would get you the bottle of paint. So it was the first urban legend ReaperCon color, and that was the only way you could get it. And the best part ever was Kev White's little boy, who I think was all of 7 or 8 at the time, coming up to me in his little British accent and going, "Drow nipples," to get his bottle of paint. So it was great, and people loved it. And it's actually more of a purple than a pink, but it's a beautiful color. So I decided, since I get requests for it, that I would redo it this year. So it will be at ReaperCon. You have to come up and ask me about drow nipples. You heard it here first. And you will get a bottle of paint as long as they last. I think I made 2 gallons this year, or I made 1 or 2 gallons. So there'll be several hundred bottles available. And that is how you get Drow Nipple Pink. Sadly, because of the name, we really can't put it in standard production. I suppose we might be able to put it on our website without kind of peeving people. I don't know. We try to be a real family-friendly company, so I kind of watch, I don't like to do many suggestive names, but
Innuendos?
yes, I try to stay away from innuendos. Yeah, I want families to feel good about buying our stuff for their kids, because that's how our hobby grows. So
The reason why I ask, Ann, is because I was thinking, since this show is kind of new as far as live, and something that might be really cool would be a super exclusive singular giveaway of a single bottle of this paint, maybe.
Oh, that is entirely doable. I
Is
may,
it?
in
Okay.
fact, have had already pumped a couple of bottles of this. And in fact, I have them labeled in my office.
And just so that we're on the same page, this giveaway is not this show.
Yeah.
But if everyone can kind of be on the same page, then we will maybe we'll give some away.
Yeah, we'll check with Ed, since he created it and is tickled by the fact that I actually made it. I don't think it's going to be too hard of a sell, just to put it. Just so you guys know what colors I'm using. The first color on this eye was clear red. I am now using Sunrise Orange from the Bones line. I really love the Bones line. I think the colors are fantastic. Obviously, I made them, but it really is the line I'm proudest of that I've done. Sunrise Orange is actually a really close equivalent for a traditional cadmium orange hue. So it's a really nice kind of lightish middle grade orange that's really intense. So it works just fine with the clear red here to make the eye glow a little bit more. I'm kind of going to widen out my orange a little bit. One thing that I'm not covering this time, because sadly I was not prepared, is I do like to actually work from nature sometimes on critters, even magical critters. So maybe for Mr. Dragon on top, I'll actually look up like a snake's eye or a cool eyeball, a natural eyeball, some sort of reptilian eyeball, to use as the pattern when we paint this other guy, to show you guys kind of how to adapt a real life reptilian eyeball design to a dragon. And it's often a process of kind of simplifying it so that it still conveys the effect, while you still, while you simplify it enough for something this small.
Although, Anne, I will say,
Yeah?
I do have a meeting at 3 o'clock.
Oh, okay. So we probably want to
Sorry.
wrap it a little bit early.
Sorry, guys.
No, that's cool. I mean, hopefully I'll be back, right? So hopefully we'll do
Absolutely.
this again.
I
So
think as long as people enjoyed it, yeah.
yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. Tell your friends about it if they missed it, and they can watch it on YouTube, and that we can use that to say, Ed, we need to do more of these. 'Cause Ed holds our destiny in his hands. It's a scary thing, I know. You thought he just held the destiny of Reaper in his hands, but sadly, even our stream must bow to Ed. You missed the code phrase. Yes, I want to keep working on Mr. Dragon. So, and I don't have a lot of time to paint on the clock anymore. So, yeah. I'm using, just to give you guys my final color for the eyeball, Lantern Yellow is a fantastic highlight for oranges. It's a very orangey yellow, and it's very bright. So I'm just kind of putting that in the middle to get more of a glowy eyeball look. Yeah, Morian and Dragons. Woohoo! Weekly Forester. Oh my god. New hashtag. and hashtag Drown Nipple Pink. All right, well, good. You guys are in charge of spreading the urban legend further then. And also spreading the word about this this stream so that we can continue to do it and continue to paint dragons and other awesome things. Because there's even more that I could talk about with this dragon. I could talk about texturing on the scales now that we're going to get to some bigger scales. Things like that, which I love doing textures. So that would be really cool. I'm going to grab a little bit of white to mix with my Lantern Yellow and just do a little bit of a highlight right at the top there to really make it pop. Mr. Dragon says, I hope you enjoyed our show today. Please tell them to let us do it again. Even though he's kind of upside down right now. He still says that. Something like that. So I will wrap it up. This has been Ann Forster for Reaper Miniatures for Reaper ToolBox Live. And I am so happy that you all tuned in today. Thank you for keeping me company and for keeping entertaining comments flowing and for asking questions, because, you know, that gives me something to talk about other than just babbling. Not that my babble is uneducational, but still, it's cool to have interaction, right? So let's see. Yes. Will I join the Flump Revolution? I don't know. I'm very cautious about revolutions. Send me your literature and I'll consider it. All right, guys. We're going to wrap it. You guys have a great day, and we will hopefully see you again soon.
It was good to see you guys. Don't
right.
forget to tune in tomorrow for Reaper Live.
Oh, yeah, Reaper Live tomorrow. That's right. You want to watch Ed and
6
Ron being silly
PM.
together.
CST.
See you next time.
See you guys.